Welcome to episode 16 of the Busy Fit podcast. Today we're going to talk about something that's really important to me and to so many others, and that's how to think about prioritizing your health. And we've obviously started to dive into how to prioritize your health and why you should and why your health is so important to everything that you do. And we truly believe that if you prioritize your health, that everything else falls in line. You have better energy, you feel better throughout the day, you're more productive throughout the day, you show up better for your family, you show up better for your friends, you're going to perform better in your job, you're going to serve your community better, likely you're going to have financial goals that are going to be achieved a little bit faster. And it all starts from improving your health. And I love when we work with someone, for example, that's in sales, because they're someone that, they have a direct result. They are a higher performing individual. They are going to do better in sales because of their health being in a better spot. So they see that like direct correlation really quickly. They start working on their health. They're like, oh my gosh, I closed 4 or 5 sales this week. And they see that increase when they, put themselves first. It's a little bit more indirect for a lot of people, and they don't see the result improving their health, very quickly. And that can be frustrating for a variety of reasons, whether they're on the right path or doing the right things to, improve their health or not. They don't get to see that result as quickly. And I get why that can be frustrating and not necessarily as rewarding, thinking of it more as a long-term play. But today we're not going to dive into the how and the why you should prioritize your health. We want to focus more on kind of breaking some limiting beliefs around being able to prioritize your health. The first one we'll talk about is the perfect moment fallacy. And that's really believing that there's a perfect time to focus on your health, which really leads to a lack of action, because it's thinking like you're searching out this moment when things are going to be less stressful, when you're going to have more time on your hands, when you're going to feel more motivated to make it happen. And there may be short periods where, life settles down, you start to feel a little bit better. You do get some motivation for whatever reason to start moving in your health, but that period's very short. It doesn't last for a long period of time. And so by the time that you actually recognize that it's the right time for you to get moving, you're likely already halfway through that period where you're actually going to have things be slower, because life never stays slow. And there's always going to be things that are busy that are going to be coming up. And one of the things that's important to recognize is if you only focus on improving your health when things are slow or when things are easy, you'll never build consistency to where you can actually continue with that habit when things get hard. And so that's why I always tell people the best time to start working on your health is now, not, when you wait for things to line up well, because things never line up well. And that's just not the way life works. The second one's the time scarcity mindset. And this is really just feeling overwhelmed by having a lack of time, really believing that you can't prioritize your health until these other responsibilities are met. And this is something that we're trying to think about, basically, if our health is not in the group of priorities that we have to put first. And so it becomes this secondary thing, which in reality, one, it should always be one of those first things that we're focusing on, because it is really the base of everything that we do. Without our health, we have nothing. And so one, it has to be in that priority list. But two, the root of the problem isn't necessarily just where it fits in the priority list, but it's also thinking, if my mind feels overwhelmed, I need to evaluate and understand and think of a way to not have my mind be overwhelmed. And that may be, having a different organizational process. It may be taking some time to practice mindfulness. It may be saying no sometimes to things that you wanted to say yes to, or you feel obligated to say yes to because you have to prioritize your health. And there can be so many things that can affect us feeling overwhelmed about not having time. And we can either let that happen to us, or we can take control of that moment and think, okay, how am I going to take control? What is the problem going on right now? Which is, I'm overwhelmed by everything that's going on. I have to take a step back and not just think I'm going to do these individual tasks, but look at the underlying cause, figure out what's causing you to feel that way, what's actually causing you to be overwhelmed, and address that first. Because that's the most important thing, to be able to say, if this is happening continually, the worst thing you can do is continue doing the same thing and just patching holes. And next thing you know, it's 5, 10, 15 years down the line, you haven't done anything. So look at everything, take a step back and recognize, how do I actually focus on improving my health today? And personally, for me, I felt this a large amount when I was coaching. And I felt like these recruiting calls or these recruiting trips or phone calls or meetings or whatever all were so important that my health had to go on the back burner. And I almost made myself like into a martyr in a sense, where it's like I'm just prioritizing this job that in reality doesn't actually care about me. They care about what performance I have in that exact moment, but they're not thinking about me long term. And so both to prioritize my health to be best in that moment is something that I have to do to perform well at my job. But the flip side of that is, if they're not going to think about me 5, 10, 15 years from now, I have to think about me 5, 10, 15 years from now. And so if you're just doing what's best for your job right now, or best for your career, for your family, it doesn't mean that you're always doing the best thing, because you're doing the best thing in that moment, but you're not necessarily setting yourself up long term to be able to continually serve and care about those around you. The next area we'll dive into is the all or nothing mindset. And we see this all the time. People start exercising and they start, thinking about improving their nutrition, and they'll go into, some transformation challenge, or they'll do keto, or they'll do Optavia, or they'll do Beachbody, or CrossFit, or Orange Theory. You can, go on and on and on, and they'll think like, this thing is the thing that's going to help me get there. And they'll go full into it 100%, and they'll see results, but they'll burn out, and they'll get tired, and they'll get fatigued, and they'll basically end up having to what'll at first start with a rest or a break, and then it'll turn back into a sedentary lifestyle or habits that you had previously, because it's not a sustainable method. It's not something that they can do forever. And we all go through this because we start to feel momentum. We start to stack win on top of win on top of win, and we feel good about it. And we want to continue doing that. But a lot of times more isn't always better. It should be more about, okay, is this doing the correct amount of intensity, effort, volume, frequency that's going to help me move in the direction I want to go? But is it going to also support my life outside of just this? And also, can you enjoy it? Can you do it forever? Is it something that you can see yourself like, yeah, oh my gosh, I love going to the gym and doing this workout. I could continue to do this for, the rest of my life, because it's something where it's short term. You feel like you can do it for a year, maybe 2 years. That can be great if you're competing as an athlete and it's very short term, but that's not something that you can do in a lifelong journey. And so it's really important that the method that you do use is sustainable forever. The next is, and this is something I think personally I fall into often, is guilt over taking care of yourself. And, it can be something about going to bed at a certain time so you can wake up in the morning and get to a workout. And so you're, taking time away from, spending time with family. Or it can be, everyone is working in the office on, Saturday, and you decide to go do a workout and spend time with family and like do things that are right for you. Those things, we just have to recognize, like, it's never a bad thing to like take care of what we need personally, and being able to separate when you are neglecting your responsibilities versus you've done enough and it's time for you to take care of yourself. And those are two very different things. But I find myself all the time feeling guilty over if I'm going to, turn down going to grab a beer with someone because I know they're going to try and get me to, drink more than I want to, or to eat a bunch of fried chicken, or anything along those lines. Or, now I work for myself, and I've noticed it's much better for me to wake up really early at 5 a.m., but I may not necessarily start work until 8 or 9, because that's what's best for me to spend some time with my wife in the morning after I work out. It's a common thing for people to feel bad about prioritizing things that they enjoy. It's just important to recognize what is actually self-care versus what is something that's not necessarily driving you forward. And I think we speak about all of these things, and this may be a little bit of a side note, but we speak about all of these things as if we have to be perfect all the time. And that's just not the case. Like there's a big emphasis on like there has to be grace in the process, and you have to recognize like, okay, it's okay for me to take care of myself. It's also okay for me just to like live and to not have to be perfect. And like, we never view skipping a workout as a bad thing as long as it's like an isolated incident. But you're still overall consistent. You know, you can think about the fact that you have to prioritize yourself as something where you're giving something else back to be able to make that happen. But again, what we mentioned earlier, and you'll be very surprised when it happens, when you do prioritize your health, everything else falls into line. You're so much more present for other things. And that presence can make you more efficient. It can put more value in the time that you do have together. Again, I'll refer back to when I was coaching all the time, and I would fly home or drive home to spend time with my family over the holidays. And I would sleep most of the time I was home, and I would be stressed. I would be like reactive and like not wanting to be around people and socialize. And it's like, cause my mind just needed a break. I just needed to step back a little bit. And I would feel guilty about having that balance and like having it set up in a way where like you can actually take care of yourself first. And you just have to recognize like what's actually beneficial for you and what can be holding you back. And one of the most important things that can be holding you back is not prioritizing your health, because you're not going to be as available or as caring or as like emotionally regulated or stable as you need to be there for those people that are around you. The last thing that we'll talk about is the compare app, where like we like to see like the grind that everyone's putting in, and someone's putting in 60 hours, like, oh, I put in 60 hours too, or I put in 70 hours too, when that may not necessarily be the best thing for you or for them. And it can be kind of like a rat race when it's not something that we really ever have to do, and it doesn't benefit anyone. I don't know where I saw it, but someone said, if a 40-hour a week job takes you 50 or 60 hours and you feel like that's committing to doing your job really well, then it's really not. The most important thing is to not have to work 50, 60 hours, because you put more emphasis in those 40 hours. And so say we take 5 hours of the week outside of our 40 and we take care of our health, we take time to grocery shop, to have a plan for our food that's going to help us be set up for success for the week. We take time for some mindfulness and for some stuff that we enjoy. We may actually get all of our work done in 40 hours and not need to work 50 or 60 hours. And I think that's the side of it that people don't necessarily think about, is what actually happens when we take care of our health and how does that affect everything else that we do. So overall, and I know that these 5 concepts are easy to discuss and break down and easy to apply logic to, but they're not as easy to put into practice, and they're things you just have to be self-aware of. And so this episode particularly is not necessarily about saying, hey, you're doing these things, like make this change, but it's an opportunity for you to self-reflect and think, are these things that are limiting beliefs that are holding me back? And what do I need to do to break through this to actually be able to finally improve my health for good? And even talking about it and having the conversation is incredibly important. Even just while I'm going through this podcast, it comes to mind for me several moments where I find myself in these, and health is something that I prioritize regularly. And it's a conversation that my wife and I should have. And it's a conversation that you should have with your family and for those around you. And one of the most important things that I always tell our clients, especially when they start working with us, is tell other people what you want to accomplish. Because anytime you try and do something purely just by yourself, it's so much harder than when if you have people supporting you. We're fortunate because we have a community of people that all care about each other and support each other and have each other's back. But build that support system around you and make sure the people that are around you are supporting your goals. Because it's very easy to get stuck in a place where the people that you're surrounding yourself with may not be supporting your goals, but also if they don't know what your goals are, it's hard for them to support you. I hope you're enjoying our show and finding value in the content we're sharing. We're super passionate about creating episodes that inform, entertain, and inspire you on your journey. If you're loving what you hear, we truly appreciate your support in helping our podcast grow. Leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform only takes a minute and means a world of a difference for us. Your feedback not only encourages us to keep producing great content, but also helps others discover our show. And if you've got a friend, family member, or colleague who you think would benefit from listening to our podcast, please consider sharing it with them. Word of mouth is incredibly powerful, and your recommendation means the world to us. Thank you for being a part of our podcast family. We look forward to bringing you more valuable content in the episodes to come.